like life doesn't always happen as you plan it. It's just not a thing. Everyone probably has experienced at least once in their life that like you plan something, but it doesn't happen. There's some other plan for you, and you just have to take it without having to have the reason why it's happening. You just go for it.
Welcome to the Reinvention Game podcast, where I, Marta Ruszczynska, sit down with interesting individuals and explore their turning points in their lives when they realized they needed to let go of one dream and begin anew. Today, I'm thrilled to welcome Monika Gębarzewska, a former cross-country and track athlete from Poland, who now manages major running events in the US. Let's dive into her journey from the track to race management and how she's redefined herself post-athletics. Thank you so much, Monika, for joining me today. You're my first official guest for this podcast, so I hope you know I'm super excited.
Yeah, thank you for inviting me. And I feel honored to be invited to this. You know, it's an interesting topic. I like talking about those things, so thank you.
Awesome. Monika, as we heard, you are a former track and field athlete. What many people don't know is that you've also danced. However, you gave up dancing and focused solely on running by the age of 11. Could you tell us a bit about how you got into running and what drew you away from dancing at such a young age?
I started dancing when I was 7 years old because I had too much energy. So my mom took me to dance classes that were like within walking distance from where we lived in Wrocław, in Poland. And my dad, he used to be a marathon runner. So I've always been around running. Even when I was a dancer, I always, I would go for some runs with my dad. I would combine both running and dancing. And, when you're a little child, you have so much energy. So I used it properly. When I was 11, I won like a Polish nationals for children in a track and field. I competed in 600-meter race. And then I realized that I'm pretty good at it. And from there, then there was a coach who noticed me in Wrocław at one of like a road races. And eventually I decided to entirely focus on running. At the age of 12, it went on for 13 years.
Awesome. So what were your dreams when you started running? What were your aspirations?
Well, my biggest dream as every athlete was to go to Olympic Games. But eventually I realized I might not be as good. So whenever I realized that, I still wanted to continue my running career. And then I knew some people who moved to the US for college to compete and study. And that became my kind of like a new dream when I was in high school. And eventually I got the opportunity and I made it happen and I moved. And that was kind of my last dream in my career, was to finish college, keep the scholarship, graduate. And that was like a cherry on top of my running career.
But before you shifted your dream, you had regiment practices. What did that require from you physically, mentally, or even time-wise?
I missed out on a lot of things like after school parties or like weekend getaways with friends, because there was always, season, or I was going to like a sport camp, training camp. I always had to, not party because I had competition on like Saturday morning or Sunday morning. So since I was doing it since I was like 11 years old or 12, it was kind of normal for me. The regime was like casual thing. So I never really felt like I was giving up on too much in my life, because it just felt like, I've been doing it. Like, that's just like a daily routine. I have to practice and then I have competition. So I think after I was done with career, I realized more of how much of a different lifestyle I had comparing to other people. And I kind of was rethinking how much I've done because it was just a normal thing for me before.
So do you have any regrets, or do you think about it in a little bit different way?
No regrets. I feel 100% happy with how my career went. I wouldn't change anything. The only thing that happened during COVID was that my last season ever was canceled. I moved back to Poland. That was a huge change that I didn't plan for, and it took a lot of mental health to like find myself again. But absolutely no regrets. And I hope everyone has some type of hobby or passion they like to do because it's beautiful.
So before we move to the part where your season got cut because of COVID, that's completely another story. But I want to go back a little bit. And you said, and I also listened to one of your interviews, and you mentioned that you have simply realized that you are not at the level to compete in the Olympics or any other big competition. And this is when your, dream shifted. But that requires an enormous amount of self-awareness. And what emotions did that decision bring up?
I feel like it was the matter of time because the older you get, the more experience you have. In my case, in running, you see how others are competing, how fast everyone is. So I just kind of came to the realization without being hurt. I was just like, okay, I guess I won't be going to Olympics. That's fine. And I learned about other ways to continue my career. And I was like, I guess that's what meant for me.
Mm-hmm. And you didn't have that push to drive, like, okay, they're better, but I want to try to even out the gap and, reach their level.
I don't think so. I felt like I was, whatever I was running when I was, let's say, in high school, I had a really good coach and, I was at a pretty high level. I was okay with where I was at in life, in my career. In the last year of high school, I learned about the opportunity of going to the US, and that kind of automatically became my other goal. And I was like, okay, that could be my new goal. I never felt hurt or anything like that, which was good. I think that was helpful to just pursue other paths.
Yes, definitely. So as you said, you didn't move away from running completely, but rather continued your competitive running, but on a different level. And you got your degree and joined the running team in University of Southern Mississippi. So how did your time at the USM shape your identity as an athlete?
I learned more about what it is to be part of a team, not just an individual runner. In the US, there's kind of a bigger focus on like you're a team, you have teammates, you have to work out together, compete together. So I kind of learned the value of it because in Poland, we're all treated mostly just as individuals. And then I moved to the US and I learned how to appreciate other runners around me who care for me. I think that was like a new thing that I learned. I was totally on my own. I didn't have family. I had to make new friends. And I became more appreciative of having friends because they became like my second family, which I think that's what you learn when you move abroad.
And what were the most memorable experiences or challenges during your collegiate running career in the US?
We traveled a lot for competition, which was kind of like a dream come true because that was like a way of combining my love for traveling and my love for running. I visited new places. I've gone cities that I don't know if I would ever go to if not for running. And just making so many new friends, my teammates, having the whole American college experience. And even running, I would never experience that. I would never go to college to the US. The biggest challenges, the fact that we had to wake up at 6 a.m. to work out. I've never woken up at 6 a.m. to do workout in my life before I moved to the US. And just combining studying with running, sometimes we had 2 practices a day, and then you still have to go to class to do your homework. So I've learned a lot about time management, which is a big challenge, but it was what everyone was doing, what all the athletes were doing. So that also was like I would say smooth transition because I already was used to the regime and challenges that come with running.
Even though you decided you didn't want to pursue running professionally, you still dedicated 4 more years towards competitive running in college. And from what I've seen from your records, you actually broke several personal records during your college career. So congrats, but didn't make you feel like, okay, maybe I could have tried going for higher level of competitions since you kept improving?
No, I think the competition is even higher in the US. It's like one of the best countries to be for like sports. So even though I improved a lot, I still was aware that I'm not as great as like those top athletes who will go pro, and I was okay with it. And I think also because I've done it for so many years already back in Poland, I knew like even when I was moving to the US, that was my kind of like final goal in my career, my dream to graduate. And I didn't feel like I had to look for any more goals if it comes about running.
And so you spent 4 years in college. You loved your experience. You traveled a lot. You practiced. You got your degree, which is awesome. But then your career, even though it was semi-professional, went to a sudden stop, right? In 2020, when the pandemic hit, you graduated and your running career just ended. So how that change affected you mentally and emotionally?
More than I would expect. So not only my career ended, which I was kind of prepared that it was coming to an end a few months later, that ended. And also I went home. I went back home because of COVID. So whenever I went back and I realized I'm not going back to the US, from the day when I decided I'm flying back home, it was just like my decision together with my family. Everyone was worried. No one knew what was happening. So like, okay, I will go home. Even though I planned to stay possibly for 1 more year to find a job and just see life after college in the US, that didn't happen. I went home and I just stayed there because the borders closed, everything was closed. So whenever I was there, I kind of felt like I lost like half of my personality because like most of my life I was the runner. I was, traveling a lot. I went to the US. I felt cool. And then when I went back, I was just like, so who am I right now? I got a job pretty quickly, which I was really thankful for. My first full-time job that was not connected to sports. And I was really lost with like, who am I now? Like, what do I say now? Like, what do? I work. Oh, and I felt like I was missing some kind of passion about my work. And that was tough. I know a lot of people were lost because it was COVID, but in my case, I don't think it was just COVID. It was just the fact that my 13-year career ended. I moved back to where I, come from, which is a great city, but I've always dreamed of living abroad. And that dream kind of ended after 4 years. Within 3 days, decision was made, I was going home. And I felt like mentally I was back in like high school, dreaming of moving abroad, seeing how life looks like in other places. And I was back again, just dreaming about it. And I didn't know how to get out of it.
So how did you deal with that? I mean, you're saying you had like all those emotions and the loss of identity. Like those are big things, big shifts and big transitions. Like, what did you do?
Honestly, for few months, for some time, I was just sad. I didn't know what I should be doing. I knew like it was time for me to get a job. So I got a job, which it was the right decision, of course. I knew I was missing sports in my life. I didn't have any reason. I mean, I was doing some sports just for myself to stay sane. But I felt like the whole knowledge and experience I had was like not wasted, but I couldn't use it for anything. That was just like not part of my life anymore. I would search for some job in different countries, just like seeing what's out there. But I still had that feeling that because I didn't get to stay in the US for the extra year to work, to see how life looks like, I felt like my chapter in the US never ended. I never had a closure. I was just kind of forced to leave because of COVID. And I felt like I was missing the closure.
Mm-hmm. So where did you get your support from?
The whole support was my family and friends. We would go for a lot of walks, a lot of conversations. They had to deal with a lot of my complaints on a daily basis. I was really sad. I don't know how they dealt with me, but I'm really thankful for that. And then eventually, when I started doing some research, I learned about potentially opportunities of moving back to the US to pursue other degree.
But prior to that, have you ever considered coaching or? or not at all?
I never wanted to be a coach. I never wanted to be just in running. I was interested in kind of being around sports, but not as a coach, not as a runner. I just wanted to somehow be in it on the business side. But I just had no idea at that point. 2020 or 2021, I didn't know how and like what would I be doing. But I had some thoughts that I was like, it would be nice to combine it because I like the whole like environment.
So how did you manage to go back to US?
I got a graduate assistant position at my university where I did my bachelor's. I was offered a graduate assistant for our track and cross country team. Very thankful for it. Our head coach offered it to me. And whenever I got that, I was like, I will take it as a sign. I think that's what I'm meant to do right now. Even though I never planned to be a coach, but this was just like a great position that didn't require me to actually coach anyone. I was more just helping the team, the coach with whatever they needed me to help with. And it was a not tough decision, but it was tough to quit my first job ever, even though I knew like I needed a change. But just quitting your first full-time job ever and knowing that you're not moving for any new job. I was just moving to pursue my master's degree and graduate assistant position, which was just part-time job. I knew it was kind of risky, but I was like, I'll give it a shot. My mom was saying, if you don't take it now, you're going to regret later. Like, you don't know what's going to happen. Like, this could be just one-time opportunity to go back. Like, maybe in a year or two, you will not want to go back to college anymore. So I was still kind of like, my mind was still fresh. I was still like ready to study more, which I feel like maybe a few years later, I wouldn't want to do that anymore. So I felt like it was kind of now or never. So I did it.
Was it difficult to transition from the structured world of athletics to corporate life? And what were some of the toughest parts?
I feel like when you're in athletics, you're kind of taken care of. A lot of things, like they do your class schedule, they help you with whatever you need. But when you go into corporate world, you're not that amazing anymore. You're not like, oh, you're an athlete. You're just another employee. I think when you're in athletics, you compete, you're at your highest, like mentally, you're always like, how to explain that? You're in kind of like athletics bubble. You have their schedule, when is the season starts, when it ends, like year, semester by semester, you know what's happening. You're excited for like, okay, in a month we're going there. That's the competition. That's my goal. But then when I started working, I was like, so this is like just like normal adult life. I just didn't know like what I should be excited about. So I couldn't find that. No one was taking me on any competition anymore. It was more just like doing like work every day, but I couldn't see like the next step in my life, if that makes sense. I also felt like there's some job for me that can excite me, that I can be excited about and just combine my passion and just being an adult and like, working. I just knew like that wasn't necessarily that type of job. But I was kind of, my next dream was to find something that excites me regarding like professional life.
Okay, so you did your master's for 1 year, right? And the master's you chose was in sports management, right?
Actually, what I chose was MBA, but I didn't get in. And I learned that when I was still back in Poland, that there were different rules because of COVID. Like certain exams were waived to get into certain program. So I was told I didn't get in, but I was offered I could pursue sports management and possibly change my major whenever I get to, back to Mississippi. So I was like, in my head, I was not excited about accounting and finance classes. So I was like, maybe actually sports management sounds more like me, because I wanted to be in sports. So the fact that I didn't get into an MBA, I quickly took it as like, okay, that wasn't meant to be. I wasn't upset for too long, maybe for like one day. Yeah, I believe some things happen for a reason, and that was one of them. So I never considered changing the major. As soon as I started classes, I was like, okay, cool, that's interesting. I started classes and I was like, I like it. So I didn't feel like changing it anymore.
Where do you think you learned that mindset that whatever it is, and what's meant to be, it's meant to be?
I think also the change of like going back home and then flying back, I kind of went with the flow. I was like, I don't know what's happening. I don't know what I'm doing, but I feel like that feels right. That was the next thing that I was like, I don't know. I guess I was meant to go back to the US, and I took it. I was like, I guess I'm meant to do this major. I just didn't want to stress over that at all. I don't know why I was so chill. Even though I was really stressed to move back, but I guess I just didn't want to add up another stress of changing major, like overthinking, should I do this one or this one? I just wanted to be there and to do it.
I would say a lot of people now stress about things that we absolutely have no control over.
Oh yeah, I do that too sometimes, but there are situations like this one and where I'm like, okay, it was meant to be like that. And there were other situations in my life where I was also like, okay, this happened, so I think it was meant to happen.
So what would you say to others who are in a situation like that? Like, what advice would you give them?
That sometimes what happens, you don't have to necessarily know why it's happening, but if it's not hurting you or anything, it's just happening, just go for it. Just take it to what comes in your life.
And what would you say, how to stay confident in a situation like this?
Life doesn't always happen as you plan it. It's just not a thing. Everyone probably has experienced at least once in their life that like you plan something, but it doesn't happen. There's some other plan for you, and you just have to take it without having to have the reason why it's happening. You just go for it and see what happens. Maybe better things will happen. Maybe what you thought was best for you is not. Like maybe there's other thing that's better. You just don't know yet why.
Well, I love how much trust you have in the universe. It's absolutely
not always,
awesome.
I do overthink too. Sometimes in different situations. I don't know what situations right now, but I think also just meeting other people who have different journeys in their life, and you learn how others found their way. The more people you meet, the better. The more you learn, the more places you go, the more like different lifestyles you see, and you kind of like, maybe that's also cool. Like, better after that.
So after college, after your master's, you fairly quickly found a job, right?
Yeah, I started a job search in my last semester, which was fall semester 2022. I knew what, I wanted to like work in sports, but that was all I knew. I had no idea like what position. I knew nothing. I never worked in sports. So it was a challenge, but for 3 months, I kept scrolling LinkedIn. I was Googling, just kind of seeing what's out there. I did some interviews that I failed whenever, sometimes when you go have some job interview and whenever it ends, you're like, yeah, that I'm not going to get it. So I've had those situations. I was trying to do some networking. I was asking around people who are in the industry. So it was a lot about networking and just kind of like, take what comes my way again. Mm-hmm. But I was really stressed. I wanted to cry almost every day. For 3 months, it was a challenge. It was a challenge. Like when I was looking for a job, in my imagination, I was like, if I get the job offer, I'm gonna cry. Like it just didn't seem like something possible at that point because it was just really stressful.
And what helped you stay sane in a moment like that?
I don't know. I knew like I got in that routine after like first few weeks of like looking for a job that I don't even know what job I'm looking for. It became routine that I would every day wake up, I look for a job. So it was a challenge, but also I made it a routine for 3 months. And I also knew my other friends were also looking for a job. So I was like, I guess, we're all in this together. But it was scary. Like in my imagination, I was like, where am I gonna get a job, what city I'll have to go to, like what's gonna happen. I don't know. I never lived in any other state in the US than Mississippi. It was easier because you had it all kind of provided. You know people who you live with, you know how to find apartment, and I just couldn't imagine how I'm gonna do it in a totally new place whenever I finally maybe get that job.
So how did you finally get that job? And what company did you start working for?
So I got a job at Jumping Fences, the company that organizes San Francisco Marathon and Berkeley Half Marathon. It was through LinkedIn networking. I got the offer 5 days before graduation, which couldn't be more perfect timing because my mom was coming with my cousins for my graduation. And just the thought of having them visiting me, traveling with them, and having to stress about the job search, that just sounded like hell. It was just exciting because I had the offer. So I didn't have to walk at the graduation and thinking, oh, cool, I'm graduating, but I don't know what's happening. So it was through LinkedIn networking, sending messages to a lot of people. Sometimes you get rejected, sometimes people respond to you, and I was happy that I got that response that I needed.
Mm-hmm. What advice would you give for someone who wants to network? What do you think was the success?
I think these days it's important to make more personal connections, not just emailing, but I was advised by a friend who works in sports industry, but I think it's any industry, to like reach out to certain person, to send that DM on LinkedIn, to just be more like, you're talking to the person, you're not talking to HR department who you don't know who is there. It's more about like introducing yourself, not just like, hi, do you have any jobs? Like introduce yourself, show who you are, where you came from, what you've done. Just, your potential employer is also a person who wants to know you. Just show yourself more as a person.
Mm-hmm. Have you ever had doubts of like, oh no, this person is too high up, I'm not going to message them? Or we're just like messaging anybody and trying any door out there?
I would say I was just trying any door, but also you have to be humble and show the appreciation also if the person responds to you. Sometimes I would have like responses, there is no job offers right now, there's no open positions, but people wanted to give me some advice. So I would have like calls with owners of companies of like, running events. They just wanted to talk to me and just tell me how I should look for a job. So just keep talking to people and show them that you want the advice. Like, you don't have to know everything. The CEO is also a person.
Okay. So how is your experience now working for Jumping Fences?
I love it. This job kind of taught me that working in like marathons industry, that's exactly what I want to be doing. I'm around running, but on the business side, on like, organizing the event side, I can still use my knowledge that I gained from being a runner. Yeah, it's great. I love seeing people who love running. I like the dynamics. Whenever there's a marathon, I like to see how it's all organized, how many parts come with, putting up such an event. And I want to learn more. I want to continue learning. And I've already learned so much. It feels right to me where I'm at right now. And I didn't know if it was gonna feel like that when I was starting. I didn't know. So I just, I went for it. And I'm thankful for, my boss and all my coworkers who were very welcoming, and, they trained me. I learned a lot, and they always, help if anyone needs anything.
So how did you go living from 5 years in Mississippi? You moved to San Diego first, right?
Yeah, I was in New Orleans. I was in San Diego. I was in the Hamptons. I was all over the place visiting friends. I'm very thankful for being hosted always. I was excited to have that time in my life when because my job is fully remote. So whenever I got it, I was like, I don't know where I should be moving to because there is no office. So it was kind of up to me. So before I decided where I should be, I was just visiting people, and it was amazing. It was amazing. I've been in like West Coast, East Coast, in the South, and I wouldn't change that. But whenever it was around 4 months that I was moving around, I had a feeling that it was time for me to like get my own room somewhere where I have all my things, because I would have things all over the country basically. I remember since I was a child, I always was like wanted to be in New York City for some reason. I've gone here for like a few days as a tourist few times, or when I was in the Hamptons, I would come here for a day. So I was just always curious. I was like, it might not be a paradise. It might not be like place I want to stay forever for the rest of my life, but I always wanted to see how life looks like here. I decided that I should move there. I started looking for apartments. I went to see the apartment and meet the girls who were looking for a third roommate. I had only one appointment kind of booked, and I had nothing else. This was the only one that I so far found that was good price, good location, because it's a lot of factors that come with it. But the same day when I went to see the room in the evening, I got a message that they offered me the room. On the first day when I moved here, I got it, which is a miracle. And I also took it as like, okay, I think I made the right decision. I was meant to be here. I got the room on the first day. Couldn't be better. That's it. And I like it a lot. So it's just great.
How is it living so far from home? Like you're by yourself in the US. You said you found your family there, but how do you deal with being so far away from your country, your family, your tradition, and your culture?
I think since I was a child, I always was telling myself, oh, like, I can't wait to live abroad one day and see how life looks like somewhere else. So whenever I moved to the US, it kind of felt right. I was like, oh yeah, like I've been thinking that I wanted to live abroad. I would get homesick, of course, especially like the first few years. I was getting more homesick in my first years than right now. It's challenging because like you're missing out on a lot of like family events, or like there's Christmas or there's something, and like, oh, like today I would be sitting with my family, would be doing this and that, and now I'm not doing that. But also I'm choosing to be here. I'm not mad at anyone. It's my choice that I moved.
So you said you've learned how to deal with being homesick and what helps you. So what would you say that those things are?
I also learned that it comes and goes. Sometimes it's a day when I miss home more because I found the city where I want to stay for now. That also helps. Like I want this place to make home, because where I was in college, I knew that was never going to be a place that I will call like my long-term home. The fact that I know New York City for now is a place that I'm happy to call my new home, that helps me because I'm happy here. Mm-hmm. So that helps with homesick, to be in the right place for yourself, for you.
So what do you think is the most valuable lesson you've learned from running?
That it's not always easy, and life is also not always easy. You have to, work hard for things. Life and running, like your, whatever sport you do, you will not always succeed, and it will not always happen like you plan your training. You think, okay, in like few months, I should be at this point of my career. It doesn't always happen like that. You might get injured, or I don't know, you might just not be at the point of your life, of your career, that you plan for at a certain time. And that's normal. And also be appreciative. Whenever you succeed, remember how hard you worked for it. Thank people who helped you, because that's also so important, especially when you live abroad. You will need help from people, and also in life you also need help from people. So just take it. Don't be afraid of like asking for help or just taking a risk. Also might not always be the right decision, but also sometimes it might be the right decision. So basically, you never know what may happen, but it will be worth it.
Awesome. And so what would you say is the most significant lesson from your experience outside of running?
I feel like also a lot of things are temporary, and you have to remember that, like, in a week your life may change. That's what COVID taught me. Because for 4 years, I was convinced, yes, sure, I'm staying in the US for 1 year. After I graduate, I will find a job. And yeah, that's how it's going to look. That's how 2020, 2021 will look like. I will be working in the US. No, I went home. So that taught me that you can't really plan everything in your life. Like it will surprise you in a good and bad way. And you have to be prepared. So appreciate what you have right now and kind of like, work towards your goals and remember that you might have some downs on the way. But then, when that ends, you have to remember that there's another chapter in your life that will not be the same. It's not the same lifestyle, and will have to find yourself again. No matter if you're at it or not, that's also just life advice. That it will be sometimes, tough. But yeah, take a risk even if you don't know if it's gonna be worth it.
Awesome. So how do you find fulfillment in your daily life now?
When you're done with school, you start working. You want to be happy with what you do, like with your job. So I think for now, I feel happy with that. But also, you want to find your people who will, you'll surround yourself with, because that's also a huge part of your happiness. It's who you surround yourself with. And I feel like I found those people. I still feel like I should find some new hobby because like I work for running. I run on a daily basis, just like, to stay in shape. But I feel like finding something that you're really passionate about outside of work is really important, because work is work. But then you get off and you want to be happy with your, things that you do for yourself. That's even more important. So I'm still like, figuring that out. It was important for me to live in the city where I feel happy. So now I live where I want to be. I go on vacation, but I'm also happy to go back where I live. And it was really important for me. You have to be happy with where you live, with people you're around, and to find something you're, happy to do after you get off work.
So what would you say, what's been the most rewarding part of your journey?
I've already been talking about New York City, but that was my childhood dream to live here. For some reason, before I even knew there is opportunity for me to move to the US. When I was little, I was always like, one day I'm gonna live in New York City. That's kind of a cherry on top after, moving back and forth, like, moving back home, moving back again to the US, just kind of finding my way here. Like I made my dream come true. I'm here, and for now I love it. I'm not saying it's forever, but whenever if one day I'll move out of here, I'll be just happy. I'll say I made my childhood dream come true. And it's all thanks to running, basically. It made my dream come true about like traveling. Whenever I moved to the US, it wasn't just moving there. I met people who I visited in their home countries. The sport helped me to pursue my passion for traveling, for getting to know new cultures and places. Yeah, if I lived back home, I probably wouldn't travel as much. I wouldn't meet so many foreigners from all over the world. So that's also that part of my lifestyle that I've always wanted to have. I've made it happen on my own. So I think that's also a big fulfillment for me.
Awesome. You should definitely be proud of yourself. So you achieved your dream of moving abroad, living in New York City, and then now working in the industry of running. So what's next for you? What's the next big goal?
Good question. That's something that I'm trying to find. I feel like I don't know yet. Also as an athlete, you have certain goals, you chase it, and then you move on to the next one. So in my kind of like mind, I'm like, okay, I have to have another goal soon, because that's how my brain is used to function for so many years. So kind of like getting impatient with like what next goal I should have because I want to find something. I don't know yet.
Mm-hmm. Is that making you feel a little bit uneasy, or you feel like you're missing out on something?
Not missing out, but sometimes I know I might be overthinking, like, oh, what's next that I should be doing? But also I should also enjoy where I'm at right now. So it's like a battle of like, I'm happy right now, but I need another goal. But also I'm okay here. So I'm just trying to think. what's the next like dream to make it happen? Because it's always nice to make your dreams come true. I just need to find it. I want to travel, of course. There are so many places I want to see, but I want to have some other goals that I still have to figure out.
Okay. Well, there's always time to find something new.
Sure.
So what advice would you have for your younger self? You know, when you were struggling with your sudden cut of your career, when you were looking for a job, or like all those struggles came along your path, came along your way. Like, what advice would you give to yourself?
That it's not always pretty. This is also just temporary. So maybe I should chill more. And when you're younger, you don't think like longer term. You're not prepared for like some challenges when things just go well. So I would say just like be aware that this is not forever, and just like maybe focus on what you should do. Let's say when you graduate, job search is about networking, and it's long and it's exhausting and it can be like upsetting. But we all know that. So just keep searching for whatever you want to, but it might take time. Yeah, but at the end it might be worth it, even if it just doesn't make sense now what's happening, because when I went back home it didn't make sense to me. But maybe, if I wouldn't go home, I wouldn't have that job experience, I wouldn't pursue my master's, and then I wouldn't maybe get this job. So at the end, whatever happened so far in my life, everything just makes sense from how I see it now. There's nothing that I would change what I've done so far.
Well, it's amazing. I think one of the most important thing is to, live the life, but don't have any regrets.
Yes, exactly. And don't overanalyze it. Just go with it.
So we know what advice would you give to your younger self, but what advice would you give to someone who's a plan, dream, a goal just went to a sudden stop, came to a halt, and they have to completely shift the gears? What would you say?
That maybe, I know it's easy to say, but there might be something better waiting for you. It's just not how you thought you'll get there, like maybe it's time to switch your goal or switch the way, you are with yourself. You have to also be okay with like admitting to yourself that maybe I have to change something, I have to work on myself. Maybe what I did was wrong, maybe what I was thinking was wrong. You have to be able to say, okay, it's on me, I have to work on it. I'm happy to ask for help. I will admit that I'm upset, I'm angry, and I need some help sometimes. You have to like talk to people. Ask them what they think you did wrong, or what you think went wrong for you that you could change, work on, and all that. So, yeah.
Monika, thank you so much for all these great advice, lessons, and thank you for telling us your story. It's a testament that you really need to believe in the universe and that everything is gonna, end up fine, even though the beginnings may be rough. The final results is gonna turn out well. So thank you so much.
Thank you for cool questions. Like the questions, they help me to like also rethink what I've done and how it happened. It's nice to reflect on myself as well.
Awesome. I'm glad to hear that. Thank you again. And if you've enjoyed this episode, don't hesitate to leave us a review. And join us next week when I have an opportunity to sit down with my really good friend, Adam Chan.